Hey guys! Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about improving adolescent literacy within the middle grades. Some things that I read were just giving a few tips and things that are able to just be able to help our students be able to further improve their learning. So, especially for me, this is a big thing, was like, do I really need to teach literacy? Because I'm going to be going into middle school. I'm going to be a math and science teacher, and my thing was, is literacy really that important? Which, that's a general question, but I believe that literacy is super important because there are so many different types of literacy that you can teach, especially as a science teacher. There are going to be huge diagrams and graphs, and that's going to be how much of my data is going to be given to the students, and it's going to be difficult for a lot of them to understand it. So oftentimes, information is given in diagrams and pictures, which is difficult for the students to comprehend, and they can't retain the information very easily. So one thing that is going to be essential for me to do is going to be to make the lessons relatable and give them ways that they can make it relevant to themselves. They're more likely to pay attention and actually remember and retain information in a way that just intrigues their interests. And one thing is that learning how to read doesn't have to stop at the elementary school level, because that was something in the book that I read, was that so oftentimes we believe that kids should know how to read by the time they're in 6th grade, which they should. They should have a very good understanding of words and things, but as they continue on their schooling, it becomes more complex. Their responsibilities go through the roof because they're trying just to figure out, like, what are these words? They're going to huge words like metamorphosis or like just gigantic things, and they're not going to be able to comprehend them. But that's part of what we're going to have to do. It's our responsibility to help the students understand these complex sentences and these complex texts that they're going to be reading. And so one way to combat that is to pick a few certain skills for the students to focus on and really hone in on those skills. Just a couple of them. It's better, one of the books that I read stated that it was better for students to master a few skills than be exposed to so many skills that they don't master anything. They can't remember anything. And that's really what I feel, is that you can pack in so much information, but they're only going to retain so much. So really try to pick a few certain skills within a unit to focus on. And one thing that you can do is to challenge the students to make the connections through the reading and make the lessons relatable. Find what's relatable to them in what they are reading. The good readers are able to find a variety of things in their reading. They can relate it back to themselves. So one of the articles I found was about comprehension instruction and things to do, the elements that we need to bring in on our lesson plans. So the first one was to assess the text that students are reading. So as teachers, we need to know what this text is saying. We need to know what's going on. And we need to provide models for the thinking process. Show them what directions they're supposed to be going. And give students a sense of meaning. Show them what they're supposed to be able to figure out and help them know that what they're writing, and give them a purpose. Then also we need to teach students how to think. We need to teach them how to hold on to that thinking, what they're feeling, and write it down, and just be able to apply it to what they're learning. For English and language arts teachers, that's typically what it is. They're the ones who teach the reading. But I don't want that to be how it is. It's supposed to be how reading should be taught across the board in all the different disciplines. In math, you're going to have to learn how to read algebra. That's a type of reading. You're going to have to learn how to read science, like I said, graphs and pictures. And there's different solutions that we can do in order to do that. So I found, I think, 8 here. So the first one was to find different genres that apply to the students. So you could do like fiction, you could do newspapers, you could do pictures that they're going to look at, maybe different song lyrics, magazines, just something that applies and intrigues the students' interests. And something else is to connect it to the real world. Like I was saying earlier, was find things that are going to happen and go with current events. I remember when I was younger and I was in school that they were talking about like the wars that were going on, but it was something that was very relevant to us because we knew it was happening around us. And so Another one was to give students something to look forward to. Like, have them, as they're reading, be like, hey guys, pick out a key idea. Find something, a clue in there that'll help you foreshadow into something else. Another one was one thing was a reading purpose weekend. And this was like a diagram that I saw in one of the books. And what it was is it gave them a list, and it was like, what are you reading? Why is this relevant? What purpose does it serve? And are there any questions that you have? And each student could log it and find the answers to that. And then another thing that I really found really cool was small group discussions. And just being able to do this through small groups, it stimulates higher levels of thinking. The students are able to interact and have better social skills. It's going to help hold the kids accountable through each other and just find a bunch of different perspectives. And this is just some ways that you're going to be able to improve the literacy. And it also is going to be a huge advocate for differentiated instruction. There was a plan in one of the articles I found was called a Develop Effective Literacy Action Plan. So they created a team in their school of a few teachers and administrators who were going to help provide the literacy. And they sought out to strengthen the literacy across all content areas. They had literacy interventions for struggling students, ones who maybe weren't getting it. They were able to intervene for those kids. And they really built a leadership role in that school. And it was so cool because their scores continued to grow. Their literacy got so much better. Their kids were reading. It was a 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade class, and they were reading in high school level. And it was just cool to see how they were able to understand it. Another thing was to design assessments as checkpoints. So as they go on, don't create your assessments as like a comprehensive thing at the end. Oh, you read all this, we're going to remember it all. No. Do it as checkpoints as you're reading to just make sure that the students are getting it, that you're not leaving anybody behind. And then finally, one thing that I saw was a reading response log. And it was basically allowed the teacher just to see what the students were thinking and how they were engaging their thoughts and the things that they were reading with non-required text. So as students would go home, they could read what they were challenged to read books that weren't going to be required, but that they were able to just be able to think and just process it. And it's really good for the teacher to be able to see how the student's thought process was. And I think that these are a lot of them. Are a lot of processes that we can just do and solutions that'll help us to fix it. Last thing was, this teacher that I read, she had wrote in a blog, and it was like, she wanted to look at writing in a new way. And so she called it her 6 C's. It was like, collect data. So collect your reading. Create a chart that helped you follow along throughout the reading as a student. Cool. So they needed to take a time away from the reading, away from the writing, and just chill and process it. Not think about it. Take a time to cool down. Then they wanted to go through and read their reading and catch content. So catch content bugs, things that they could pick out and things that stood out to them. And then another one was to catch connection bugs. And so they could go and catch connections to other readings that they were making. And last one was just compute. Bring them all together and put them and have a solid paper. And these are just some things that really I thought would help improve adolescent literacy in middle school.